Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Enton's Table. My name's Timothy, and yes, some people do call me Tim. Should you switch from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition over to Pathfinder? The simple answer is no. The long and complicated answer is no, unless you really want to, because you guys have already been talking about switching and you're tired of the rule system. Maybe you don't like how unrealistic some parts of 5th edition are, or you're looking for a little bit of a change, or maybe you just like Pathfinder's art style and you're really excited about a goblin with a grin that goes out to here. Suffice to say, the big reasons why you shouldn't switch to Pathfinder is because Dungeons & Dragons is and always kind of will be the recognized brand in the tabletop space. I did a little bit of research on Google Trends, searching to kind of figure out what the search traffic had been like for Dungeons & Dragons over the years versus Pathfinder. And I found this really handy graph that was pretty telling. It seemed like Pathfinder had been a thing for a really long time and had kind of held steady while D&D's popularity sort of rose up over the more recent years. However, there was one really big caveat, and that's this here, which was that Pathfinder was mostly searches for cars. So unless you're planning on driving away in a Nissan Pathfinder, that little orange line at the very bottom there of the graph, that was Pathfinder's search traffic in comparison to Dungeons & Dragons and in comparison to 5th edition itself. Brand recognition matters. A personal experience on that one, I mean, I've introduced myself as a professional dungeon master pretty regularly over the last couple of years. Invariably, I get the what kind of look and question from people that I'm talking to. And when I say, hey, I run Dungeons and Dragons games for money, that cuts down about 50% of the people who have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. Because Dungeons and Dragons has just saturated our space and our lives for such a long time that people have heard of it. You go to somebody and you talk about Pathfinder, and I guarantee that bar is a lot higher. Another reason to stick with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is that rules mastery is really undervalued nowadays. There's an inertia that comes from making the switch over from one edition to another, and the holdback of the rules that you remember from an old edition can be really telling. My wife, in particular, still recalls on occasion rules from 3.5 or 3.0, even 2nd edition, that she comes up and says, doesn't it work this way? This is how it works. This is how it used to work. When you make a switch from something like 5th edition over to Pathfinder, you're looking at mingling those two systems, and you're also fighting the opportunity to truly master the system that you're at. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has such an advantage in the simplicity of its rule base that you can go on to learn a level of mastery that's just not as easy with Pathfinder, with all its complex modifiers and arguments and the like. Me personally, at the table, I've had a 3.5 argument, a 30-minute conversation trying to figure out the right bonuses for a climb check, arguing with the DM over that. I've never had that happen in 5th edition where an argument about like, hey, but I'm really good in this, that, but that just results in, hey, roll that with advantage. That just solves so many problems with the elegance of the system, and it makes rules mastery that much easier to gain so that when you know those rules, you can break them later. Finally, around the whole controversy about the OGL and the changes over from all the crap that Hasbro pulled, nobody's going to argue that they were kind of dirtbags and that they were making some really huge mistakes with their choices, right? Ridiculous stuff happened. They're a big corporation. Big corp's going to corp. Paizo, a small corporation, also copy and pasted their rule set from 3.5 essentially with some minor tweaks, a nice slap of paint over the top there, and kind of went against the spirit of the OGL in the creation of an entire rival company to WotC and an entire rival addition to Dungeons and Dragons when people could, and still do, just continue playing 3.5 if Paizo hadn't jumped in to take over. In fact, they could have continued to sell 3.5 supplements to enhance that old edition until they came up with something original of their own, but corp's gonna corp. At the end of the day, corporations aren't what determines how our games go. They don't make the difference at the table that a dungeon master with rules mastery and players does. And players come from brand recognition when you're introducing new people to the hobby, and good mastery of the rules leads to good dungeon mastery. Thanks for listening. If you are interested in checking out my next video, just take a look and click over here. If you want to hear more, feel free to subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us at the Enton's Table, and remember, there's always another point of view. Just ask my wife.